call home. Got this drone dropping bombs all over Vietnam. Up in here at my squad. Gonna nod my head to my bro, Ryan Bowditch.
Yo, nod your head before you wind up dead. I got a pile of lead. I'ma fucking spoon-fed you with a killer crime rhyme. I will bust it one time. Your mind rewind, slow recline. It's like, damn, he got the killer slime hitting the brain. I'm like trying to maintain in Sumer's layer. He got the player. I dare you to step, and I'm a wreck, chitty chat, pet, that, let. That don't even make sense, but it's okay.
I think that was actually Exhibit, not Ryan.
Exhibit couldn't spit like that. Actually, Exhibit's pretty sick. I do like
Exhibit's dope.
Man, what's up, Wellbeing Nation, with the Mystic Misfit brothers in the house, and Hunter. What's up, man? Hunter Gatherer.
Hey, what's up, man? Chilling. I just got back. Found some berries today.
I thought he was about to freestyle just there. I was like, talk about berries,
Man, all right, so all of you guys just got back from a workout from On It, right?
We did.
Yeah, how'd that go?
It was really tough. It kicked my ass. I needed it, though. I've been wanting to visit the On It Academy here in Austin. We're here for South by Southwest. And just long days, super busy, little sleep, not feeling so good. But, man, if I don't feel fucking euphoric high after that kind of just nice high-intensity interval training workout, just feeling like $1,000,000.
Did they have like an ice deal over there, like an ice bath, a cryotherapy bath?
They do have cryotherapy, and actually Hunter and I were going to do it, but unfortunately it wasn't running. Yeah, I've done cryotherapy a couple times, though, and man, Ryan, my brother's done it with me as well, and it's a really intense experience. The first time was really intense. The second time was super intense, and it actually was profound because I had done squats before, the day before, really intense squats, and it was actually did do the whole recovery thing that it claims to do, which was pretty rad. I felt like for the next couple hours, definitely my soreness went away for the most part. You know, it came back, but I feel like I definitely recovered a lot more quickly than I would have, which was nice. Yeah.
So with the ice bath, is it like it's a chamber? It's a cryo chamber.
Yeah.
And so what's the temperature set to?
So I think it's somewhere around like, I don't know, -260, -360, Ryan?
Yeah, it's definitely below -300, but above 260. It varies. The one we did at the, not the float lab, but there's a place here in Austin, actually, that we did it at, me and last time I was here.
Oh, nice.
I don't remember the name right now, but
It's up north, right?
yeah, it's I'm spaced on the name, but yeah, they had a cryogenic therapy there. They had different compression chambers that fill your legs full of like air and kind of help to kind of milk the blood away from your legs.
Yeah, I've done those before too.
Yeah,
Nice. Hunter, you've done like some ice baths and stuff, right? You got some experience with ice
I
baths.
totally do. In fact, I just went to the Wim Hof workshop in Los Angeles. I was shooting photos for the workshop. And it's interesting because I've never done the cryotherapy, which is a chamber, right?
Yeah.
But from what I was talking to the guys who were running the workshop, there's a big difference between being in cold water and being in cold air.
Yeah.
And they both have different effects. It's a different experience how your body intakes that like uncomfortable feeling.
Sure.
So with that said, I'd be super interested in hopping in a cryo chamber because I do the cold stuff like pretty much at least maybe 4 or 5 times a week. Anytime after I'm training.
So are you like full on nude when you're in this ice bath?
Well, first off, I take cold showers.
I'm wondering if you can get frostbite on your cock and balls. What I'm wondering. That's
There's definitely some shrinkage for sure. I don't want to go on a date afterward. I'll just say that. But I do like I try to be cold as often as I can. Like when I go surfing, I don't wear a wetsuit. I'll take cold showers. I lived in Colorado for a good amount of time, and I would like go outside with my t-shirt on, like consciously. Just to kind of adapt my body to be different temperature environments. So I think that's kind of there's some benefits to that, whether that's like mentally and like being able to like be adaptive, but also physically in terms of like how your immune system reacts to it, how your muscle tissue recovers, like you're saying. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, obviously jumping in the ocean is amazing as well. Sitting there just floating, Santa Cruz water especially it feels amazing. Definitely.
So like when you were talking about air versus the water medium, like how does it differ in terms of the cold water adaptive response?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, I don't really know how to answer that like articulately. I would just say that like how your body is, how your body reacts to the feeling of liquid, and how your body reacts on like a cellular level is entirely different between the stimuluses. Because essentially you're creating stress in your body, right? You're going to an environment that your body's saying, "What the hell are you doing? Stop this now." And I think it's also probably a temperature thing. I know that the water is about like 32 degrees.
Wow.
But that's the thing, though, right? 32-degree weather doesn't feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
32-degree water is like holy shit. Like, you know what I mean? So like you're saying it's negative 200-degree air.
Yeah.
Right? So if you think of like if you were in negative 200-degree water, you'd probably like, turn into an icicle or I don't know. I'm not sure. So I don't really know how to articulately answer that, but I'd be curious to find out some more.
I don't know if you guys ever saw or have listened to Wim Hof and all of his stories, but one of the first times he jumped into one of those extremely cold, they had to chop away the ice. It was like a foot thick, and as he was swimming to the other side, they chopped on one hole and then another hole. As he was swimming to the other side, his cornea froze. The muscles in his eyes completely froze, and he went, or it's the retina. I forget. What's the muscle in your eyes, the cornea or the retina? I don't know. I'm not a anatomy expert, but it froze. The muscle that contracts your pupils froze, and he went completely blind. And he talks about how there was, by all accounts, he should have never been able to make it because he can't see where the hole is. How is he going to be able to see it? How is he going to be able to survive? Was he going to sense it? Exactly, he sensed it. He was in such a heavy state of, because when you're jumping in water like that, man, you're swimming, like you are tapping into a flow state that is unlike anything else. And so that's exactly what he did. Somehow, some way that he can't really explain, he sensed how to find that hole, and he came out of it blind.
Wow.
With his retinas frozen over.
Wait, so
that's a bad motherfucker.
Describe a flow state, Ryan. What is a flow state?
Okay, so flow state is essentially that place where kind of all things that don't immediately matter kind of evaporate. Perception gets enhanced, increased visual acuity, increased senses, hearing, and also time distortion tends to happen. Pretty much everybody's experienced it at some time, but anytime you love something so much or you're in such an intense experience that you have to feel it. This is why you see extreme athletes are doing such insane things, throwing on wingsuits and flying between trees and buildings. Like that's the highest level flow state. How are they able to do that? Because their senses are so dramatically increased because of these flow states. Another thing, if you want to talk about, from a neurophysiology kind of standpoint, another thing that happens is a lot of the blood goes away from your prefrontal cortex and goes into other areas. So it's like the thinking mind is shut down, and all the other areas light up. They're just the pure reaction type instincts. Yeah. So that's another one of the reasons why you have these. You have increased norepinephrine, which is like adrenaline. You have increased dopamine, serotonin, you name it. You have this cocktail of amazing neurotransmitters that either form the flow state or are a byproduct of the flow state. There's no way of really knowing, but it's fascinating. The rabbit hole goes deep with that one.
When was the last time you were in a flow state? Maybe we should go around the table.
Yeah.
You just gave a beautiful explanation.
Well, yeah, I love that. So I won't talk about the last time, but I'll talk about the most profound time that I can think of. And to generalize this, a lot of people know this or view this as being in the zone, right? That's kind of like, it doesn't do it justice. A flow state is more profound, really. But being in the zone, when you kind of, for me, basketball, I'm kind of in flow states a lot when I play basketball, where I'm just like hitting every shot. It seems like I can't miss and nobody can guard me. But the most profound experience I can think of is specifically my brother and I and some friends went bungee jumping last year, and we're actually going again here in about a month in Northeast LA. It's called the Bridge to Nowhere. And we've gone skydiving before. We went skydiving like 5 or 6 years ago for my birthday, and it was really awesome. But bungee jumping is a whole nother level as far as like a flow state catalyst and just overall intense experience. And so we did 5 jumps. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, 5 jumps. And it was the first couple, you like black out. Like it's so intense that you can't even really experience it. But by the 3rd and 4th time, your body kind of gets used to it, and you can like really focus on being present, and you fully experience it. And so the experience, awesome, amazing. But what ensued after that was basically like 1 to 2 solid weeks of a flow state specifically for writing. My brother and I launched a blog website right around that time. And it was like ideas just kept coming to me and I couldn't stop writing. It was like I'd be out somewhere and I like had to get home to write. I would start like writing in my phone, like speaking into it, and I had to keep writing. And it was really like my best writing I've ever done in such a short amount of time. And so I'm always looking for those flow states again because that was like the gnarliest I had experienced it. And you can experience it in a million ways, other ways beyond just that. But writing, I love getting those flow states for writing.
Talk about why do you think specifically bungee jumping was the most intense flow state? Why,
because your body's like, what the fuck just happened? Like, think about it, evolutionarily speaking. When have you ever in your life been able to jump off a bridge and live, let alone do it 5 times in an hour time span, bounce back.
Touch the bridge.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's insane. So, I mean, I don't know when the first bungee jump was, but I gotta think it wasn't any more than 50, 100 years ago, maybe, something like that.
What, the first bungee jump?
The first bungee jump? Do you know when it was?
There's definitely been some ancient tribes, which I'm blanking on the name of, somebody else probably knows, but who would tie vines to their ankles, and this was part of their ritual, which, if you want to get into rituals later, we can do that, because that's something the American culture is sadly lacking.
Rites of passages. I hear you on that.
Rites of passages, thank you. But this is a rite of passage, and I'm blanking on the tribe, but they tie these. Yes, that is the tribe.
Classic George of the Jungle.
Yeah.
So no time were you ever able to experience that until really recently, at least on kind of a mass level where anybody can kind of tap into that. And so I think it's just because your body just completely, you're pure and utter presence. You don't have a choice. You're jumping off a bridge and you can't think of anything else, even if you wanted to,
It seems like to me, like the more and more you do something over and over, especially if it's a novel experience, like there's that adaptation response. And once you have the adaptation response and you keep doing it over and over and over, it gets to a point where it's almost like a motor program has been ingrained into your body. That after that program has been ingrained, now it's just like it's in you. And from that place of being within you, then it's just like starting to just... Like you were saying, like the brain just kind of shuts off in a way, and then something else takes over. Something embodied. I don't know what it is, but whether it's a soul or something that we don't understand yet, it's just taking over. I think probably the last time I was in flow was probably like about 2 hours ago when I was in class. People were coming in, and people with all sorts of issues were walking in. The next thing you know, I just knew what to do. I just didn't even think. I was just like, all right. Here, boom, let's go. And then it just kind of came out of me. And at the end of the class, I didn't even know what happened. And I was like, all right, we're leaving. I was like, that was awesome. I was like, cool, great. And I'm like, what just happened? I don't even know what just happened. But, it brings me to another interesting point is, have you guys heard of the Flow Dojo? Yeah?
Stephen Kotler?
Yeah. That's fascinating.
And Jamie too.
And so, like, they're measuring. They're trying to quantify the flow state. So was it like what are some of the ways they're trying to quantify it? Do y'all know?
Yeah. I mean, so I can't specifically comment on how they're trying to quantify it, but I do know we have played on their toys that they have.
Oh, really?
Yeah. One of them specifically is this gigantic swing that, yes. Dude, having sex on that thing would blow your fucking mind. Because you flip upside down. So, yeah. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get completely flipped upside down. You got to really get this really perfect momentum. But I got completely upside down. It's this gigantic swing that you're standing on, and you're rocking yourself back and forth until eventually you get to the place where it just flips a complete circle. Yeah, exactly. And not just one. If you do it hard enough, like our buddy Caden was doing it, he did like 3 in a row. And why do they have why is that a flow state kind of tool? Yeah. Well, because several things. In order to be in a flow state, you have to generate some kind of action, right? So that's why they say that being under like heavily altered states, like LSD or drug-induced states, though those are altered states and are could be profound in their own ways. I think they can be. They're not the same as when you do something that is a physically active motion that you force yourself to do that causes a flow state. For instance, this rocking motion is caused by you choosing to launch into this thing. It's the action of you, your brain thinking, I need to do this, right? And that's what causes the flow state. Whereas drugs are passive. They're kind of passive flow states, but they're not true flow states in the traditional sense.
Speaking of drugs, are you familiar what a hippie speedball is?
Of course.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
I'm not.
Okay, so to you, dude, and the people listening, a hippie speedball is popularized by Steven Kotler. Yeah. And it's three things. It's a cardiovascular response. So whether you're doing an endurance training, go for a run. It is THC, which comes from cannabis, and caffeine. So you can have a bulletproof coffee, a bong rip, and 20 burpees, and then you are essentially precursoring your brain to be in that flow state.
Dude, yes.
So to speak on my flow, I'm a photographer, and I was in San Francisco working at an event, and I do a lot of action sports for fun, and I was surfing underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. And if you've ever seen this experience, it's pretty gnarly. It's amazing scenic environment, but as a surfing experience, there's rocks everywhere. The way the waves are formed is that it's actually not a wave from ocean currents. It's actually a wave that's produced from the tankers that go underneath the bridge. So it's a wake, which is entirely different than a wave. A wake is a pushing force from a humongous boat. So what happens is when the wake hits the corner of the jetty, then it turns into a wave. With this said, that wave is extremely powerful and pushing. So I was shooting photography. I was not on my surfboard, so I was shooting the surfers in the water. So I had flippers on, a wetsuit, and my camera. So I was in this environment where it's just like totally turmoilous water, and I had to get underneath the wave every single time, and there'd be like 6 waves coming in at once. And like if I missed one of the waves, the wave would push you into the rocks. So it was a matter of holding on to my like $4,000 camera kit while going under the wave, while trying to like get into the right position to shoot the surfer. So I was totally physically, mentally in a flow state, and I took a bong rip and had a coffee beforehand. Awesome. So it was good stuff.
Yeah. I've actually, my brother and I occasionally will do bulletproof coffee with can of butter. So it's like you don't necessarily have to smoke it, but you have cannabis butter, and you get those same kind of effects. And actually, on that note, it's funny that you mentioned like taking drugs to induce it. And Ryan, you mentioned that that's not kind of the real way.
But let me just really quick comment on that. What I meant by that is that just taking a drug and sitting there having an intense, like say doing ayahuasca, are you tapping into the same sort of energy or vertical dimension, lack of time that is a flow state? Certainly. Is there a similar like kind of cocktail of neurons? Certainly. Yes. But if I just take a hit of LSD or I take some ayahuasca, am I in a traditional Steven Kotler-esque flow state? Probably not. However, if I ingest certain drugs, maybe I can get into a flow state quicker, which that's kind of what I meant by that. But
well, that was interesting you said that because, and I'm totally going to butcher this, but so Steven Kotler wrote this book, Rise of Superman, and in it he mentions how a flow state mimics the effects of what happens neurologically speaking of drugs. Specifically, he says all the major drug groups, like those parts of the brain that are lit up during a flow state, happen when you. So it's like, basically whatever opiates act on, whatever THC acts on, ecstasy, all these, serotonin, all these things, they light up when you're in a flow state. How fascinating is that? So it's like you want to like get those euphoric type of feelings and have those experiences. Get in flow states, motherfuckers, and you don't have to take drugs.
That leads me to think too. If you think of it in modern culture, like most people's experience with taking a drug is pretty shitty.
Yeah.
Like I go take ecstasy and sit in a room with like electric music and like sit at and take Snapchats, right? You know what I mean? Like that's most people's experience, right? Where if you go outside into the mountains, like you don't need a drug to do that. But I imagine if you took the drug and then went into the mountains, it's just a whole.
Totally.
It's like a double whammy.
Yeah, interesting.
So going back to the bong rip and the bulletproof coffee, like what is happening physiologically? Do you know like what's going on that elicits that kind of state of being? Do you know? I'm like infinitely curious.
I do know, Samir. I'm glad you asked. No, I'm definitely not an expert on neurophysiology, but I do find it fascinating. I've studied it a little bit. I'm sure there's people who know it way better than me, but I do know that caffeine is a stimulant, which you guys all know, right? A stimulant that tends to focus one. Certainly it works on adenosine, which is like, if I'm not wrong, a kind of like an adrenaline-esque type of stimulant. It works on a couple other things. But so that's one part, right? You're getting focused with the caffeine. Now, with the THC does the opposite. THC tends to induce what they call lateral thinking, which is two seemingly unconnected parts of my brain, which we now know that all parts in some way have connections to them, but they seem to be on different spots of the brain. Connect, you think about something, lateral thinking, which that is the essence of creativity. It's when two different kind of concepts come together to form a new one. So THC increases lateral thinking. Yeah.
Idea sex, right? Basically.
Wow. I love it. Dude, I'm going to have to market that, man. Idea sex. That's a good one. Information product. But, yeah, so the two combine, the focusing effect of the caffeine and the sort of lowering of the focusing, kind of the lateral thinking of the THC combine to create this. Because think about it. If you're too focused, you're too hyper-focused, you tunnel vision. You can't really like kind of your mind's too tense to relax and to allow the seemingly not connected ideas to form. Your mind has to be relaxed but on. So this hippie speedball does that, and I would imagine the increased exercise probably helps as well. So
that's interesting, man. That just like blew my mind. Hippie speedball. Well, speaking of like drug experiences, like mine was really shitty too. Like I told these two guys, I tried mushrooms for the first time, and I was dating this girl at the time, and there was definitely some like hidden subconscious things that were there that were
fascinating story.
Yeah,
man.
it was
That was
fucking
blowing my mind.
nuts.
Tell me about that, dude. Yeah.
And she's like, oh, we got to do it. And I was kind of against the whole drug thing for a while, and then she kind of opened me up to certain things. She's like, let's do it. And so she got the stuff, and we went out to this place out in 360 here in Austin, which is pretty beautiful area. We went out. It got kind of dark outside, like cloudy. And,
The lightning cackles
Yeah.
distance.
and it just wasn't kicking in for me. It kicked in for her like that. She was like, ooh, she's floating around. She's like a fairy doing whatever.
Dancing,
Yeah. I'm just like, and I'm thinking like clouds are coming around. I'm like, fuck, the apocalypse is about to hit, right? And I'm like, should we go back to like the house? Because this is kind of like, it's kind of strange to be tripping out here. She's like, yeah, let's go back. And then she's like, are you feeling it? I'm like, no, I'm not. She's like, you should take more. I'm like, I don't think I should. She's like, you should take more. And I'm like,
Infamous last words.
yeah. And so I did, and we got back to the house, and it got darker, and it was like 4 p.m. I think darker and darker outside. It looked like a funnel cloud was about to form. It looked intense outside. And then we started hearing like rain, and the next thing you know, she started lighting candles around the whole apartment. It was so dark. And to me, this is when my trip started to kick in. To me, it started looking like a satanic ceremonial like sacrifice. Like all these candles lit up and it's dark, that's what it looked like to me. And then she sat next to me, and all of a sudden she was like, "Are you okay?" But to me, it sounded like, "Are you okay?" Like a witch voice. And then I just started moving. My body was moving so slowly to me, but she told me I was moving fast. I was like doing this, and I was looking at her, and I could just see her nose growing. And I was just like doing this. She's like, "Are you okay?" But she's like, "Are you okay?"
I'll get you
Yeah.
right, Ricky.
And I just ran the corner, just like huddled up. And then she kept coming over to me. I was like, "Get away from me!" And I was like freaking me out. And that was my experience with mushrooms.
Damn, dude, that might be the worst story I've ever heard. I don't know if I could deal with that. I got scared just sitting here listening to it.
Dude, this is the kind of shit that makes me terrified to do any kind of psychedelics. I've never done anything besides, THC and cannabis. And I've started to warm up to the idea of late, but then I hear fucking stories like that, and I'm like, nope, I'm cool. I'm okay.
Well, while we're on bad mushroom stories, I will just tell you one very quickly. One time I took a large amount, and again, same as Samara, not in the best kind of setting, not taking it for spiritual enlightenment, not taking it to know the deep layers of my unconscious, subconscious. No, I'm taking it like an asshole to get high, and that's stupid. That's a terrible, that's a terrible way to ingest drugs, I think, So anyways, I'm with a bunch of kind of roughneck dudes, some of them having firearms on them, some of them having pit bull puppies, and one of the pit bull puppies I knew was going to be raised to fight in, kind of the little cage competitions or whatever, which I love animals. The shit broke my heart, and I was sitting there on mushrooms, and I'm hyper aware of this, and I'm looking at this dog, I'm petting it, and I'm talking to it. I'm imagining what its life is going to be like deeply imagining this thing is going to grow up and be forced to fight, and it's breaking my heart. And I'm on mushrooms, so it's intensified. And I'm like, I can't deal with this, man. I'm talking to it, It was crazy. So, I mean, yeah, man. But I also have had some beautiful experiences with psychedelics too. So, I mean, less and more of the story is, know who you're taking it with. Do your research. Do your damn research and take it with some intentionality. Take it to experience a flow state enhancement or take it to go out in nature and enjoy something, but don't take it like an idiot.
I was talking to these two guys about the sensory deprivation tanks, and that's been probably my favorite form of getting into like a state, so to speak. I don't know what to name it. It's just kind of a state of complete like relaxation, but also complete like clarity. And beyond that, it's kind of a state of like, a higher source speaking to me. I don't know if it's like my higher self. I don't know what the hell is going on. But when I'm in there...
I would say yes, it is. Samir.
Yeah, maybe it is.
I would say it is.
Sometimes I hear voices, and it could be feminine or masculine or whatever, and I go in with a question, and then like within like the experience, I'll hear an answer. And I'm like, is that me? Like, I'll sit there and start questioning, and it's like, yes. I'm like, what? And it's like talking to me, and it's so clear and so loud. Yeah. And I'll see visual stuff too. Like I'll see like the whole tank turning red, and I'll see flowers and the light beaming out. I'll see all that cool shit. But the voices are the thing that trips me out more than the visual stimulus.
Yeah.
Have you done? Okay. Yeah.
So that's very interesting that you just said that, because during this experience, I was thinking about I've done psychedelics within 5 to 10 times, different environments. I've done it at the music festival scene. I've done them by myself. The first time I took acid, LSD, I was actually in my house, in my family house, by myself, and I consciously took it by myself because it was for spiritual purpose. I was like, I'm gonna do this alone, and I want to see how I feel. And if it's uncomfortable, then well, fuck it. I'm gonna know why. And I actually had a conversation with a chipmunk in my driveway. I shit you not. There was a chipmunk that was in my driveway, and I have a picture of it on my iPhone. It was super profound. But
all been there.
yeah, yes.
Who hasn't seen that scenario played out?
Dude, it was weird. Like, for whatever reason, that chipmunk was just in my driveway, and there was probably something wrong with it, like on a reality standpoint. The chipmunk wasn't there to have a conversation with me. But why the fuck was the chipmunk in my driveway? Because I think it was like sick or like dying, and the chipmunk was just like chilling there. And I went down, and I saw it, and I started like giving it food and shit. But to go back to the voices, I took mushrooms. I made some mushroom tea a week after I graduated college as a tool to kind of tap into my inner psyche to understand what I want to do with my life. I went on a trail run in the coastal forest of Cape Cod, which is a beautiful environment by myself, with the conscious awareness that if I go outside in nature by myself, I'm gonna be separated from any distractions, right? Mm-hmm. As I was running, I could view myself running while I was still in my body. And now that sounds kind of crazy, but I was almost as if somebody was like leading me. There was a voice. When at the end of the run, I got to a beach and I just lied down on the beach. And from my understanding, when you take mushrooms, the psychoactive effects are supposed to last about like 6 hours, right? More or less. I don't know how long your satanic session lasted, but yeah. So. Yep, so I ran for about an hour, got to the beach, lied down on the beach, and I closed my eyes. And I was like out-of-body experience. And I was in my vision, I was seeing a panther. Like I just like entered the jungle. And I know there's a lot of explanations of this amongst like ayahuasca users. So I don't know if that was just maybe my consciousness like tapping into stories that I've heard. But I was asking the panther a question, what am I supposed to do with my life? And I can hear the voice in my head. It was pretty crazy. Whoa. And that experience, I lied down. I woke up maybe 20 minutes later, but it felt like it was like I was an eternity. Yeah. And as soon as I woke up, my psyche and my awareness was like totally back to being sober, for lack of a better word. Like I was not high. I was not seeing things. It was just like clear as day. Wow. So it was super weird. Like, and I've taken mushrooms before, and like I went to a festival and I wanted to be all like trippy and shit when I was in high school, and that lasted a long ass time, But I was thinking to myself, like, maybe if you use these substances as a tool, if you get to the destination or you find what you're looking for, whatever is there, maybe it's just like, okay, you're done.
Yeah.
I thought that was super interesting.
I can't speak to psychedelics just because, like I said, I haven't really done any, but I will speak to like MDMA. And a lot of people have their ideas of what it is, or maybe it's a false sense of reality and all these kind of things. But I think that for the most part, people who've done it, and particularly have done it in good, loving settings, it's a catalyst for opening up love on a whole nother level. And I've had a few experiences with people where this kind of concept of radical honesty and just openness comes into play. All of the ego and the barriers and things that inhibit you from just acting from your true self and saying how you feel are kind of broken down. And I've done it with girls before, actually a couple times, with just like one-on-one with a girl, and talk about like a magical, beautiful experience. And I've done it in groups of friends before and just kind of hung out. And that's the thing about drugs, like done in the right setting, they can really be a profound experience. But that's the key. You got to do it in the right setting. It sounds like you guys at a couple of times haven't done the right settings. And I certainly have not done certain drugs in the right settings, and it can be kind of a little bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, that's the whole idea of back to these flow states, man, is that you're opening up a realm, and I don't necessarily think that I don't believe there is such thing as a truly bad trip. I think that the one I had on mushrooms, I learned some things. I think that had I not had those intense experiences, maybe I would have never joined the Air Force. Maybe I would have stayed around these kind of shitty people who were not leading me towards greatness. Maybe I would have never had that kind of really kind of traumatic experience where I was very terrified and I was very scared. Those you stack up a few of those experiences, and all of a sudden it makes you want to change your life. However, I can't say that one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had in my life too, after finishing my first semester up at UC Santa Cruz, I go out into this bay overlooking the ocean. The sun is setting. I'm listening to Tycho. For those of you who've heard Tycho, he's just beautiful. I'm listening to Tycho, and the whole entire backdrop turns into a damn Monet Picasso painting. It's just the whole thing starts dancing. The trees melt into this beautiful colors, and all of a sudden I'm overwhelmed with this sense of peace and connection that is like hard to undervalue. So yeah, it's interesting.
I would imagine that there are some people that may judge some of this stuff as like hippie or kind of like out there and crazy. But I think with social media and the way things are right now, I think it's becoming so like apparent to people that these are the things that are like being out in nature and being able to observe these things and be in a state of like awe, effortless awe, like your body just reacts to it, is something that's like it's innate. It's almost like it's in every freaking fantasy. Every single like vacation fantasy, you see like people put like some cliff over some beautiful like thing of water, and like some beautiful animals walking by. Because in every fantasy, and yet at the same time, and we like work our asses off to get to this state of going to a vacation. And yet, when we talk about some things like this, there's so much judgment around it too. At the same time, I would imagine there is. And with drugs, I mean, I had some serious judgments about drugs myself. I was just like, oh, it's all like bad. It's like all for bad people. But again, like Hunter was saying, it's like, what's your purpose? What's your intention behind it? And I think the education around it, I was so uneducated about it. And a lot of it was like friends or doing research online. But I almost wish there was more, formal education. Like, this is what it is, and this is what you can use it for. And this is what could possibly happen. But it depends who you're around. You know what I mean? Like, I think that would be badass.
Well, I mean, Tupac said it best. We don't rest in peace, baby. He said, he's still alive, man. Wait, we don't. He is still alive. No, we don't have classes on how to budget, how to invest your money, how to have social skills, how to talk to that cute girl, how to move your body correctly. No, we have silly classes like. I'm not going to say that history is silly because you need to, in order to not repeat your history, you need to know it. But
we don't learn history.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother subject. We don't learn history at all. So
yeah. I think it's also fascinating that we go to school and then they sit us down and we're sitting in these chairs and they're expecting us to learn. But it's interesting if you look at how we've evolved as human beings. We've evolved from movement. So like our neurons become more and more interconnected and become more and more plastic, more and more complex, depending on how complex our levels of movement are as well. So it's so, like you were saying too, even to get into a flow state, something motor skill needs to happen. It's physical, right? So it's kind of strange to me that they're putting us on chairs, sitting us down, expecting us to shut up and listen. At the same time, what we're craving is this movement, this gyration, this moving around, moving our hips, and being able to let that energy come through. And that's what's so mind-boggling.
Their kids on top of it. Their kids are even more antsy than regular people. They want to just flow.
Totally.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. It made me think of this book written by Napoleon Hill called Outwitting the Devil. And Napoleon Hill, he wrote Think and Grow Rich. It's like what he's best known for, right? But this book, Outwitting the Devil, was actually just released within the past 1 to 2 decades, maybe even sooner than that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I just listened to it on audiobook as a recommendation from a friend. And God, that motherfucker was so ahead of his time. Like, when was he alive? Like 20s, 30s, 40s, something like that? Yeah. And he writes about, Outwitting the Devil, he interviews the devil. That's what this book's written about. The reason why it wasn't released until recently is because his wife begged him not to release it because it was so radical that they would just be like absolutely like banned from society type thing, right? And his family still, for like 3 generations after that, had this manuscript that he wrote and would not release it because they didn't want it to be a part of their family because it was just too radical. Finally, just recently, again, like, I don't know, a decade or 2 ago, his, great niece or some shit released it. And so it is fascinating. And it's cool to listen to an audiobook because the devil like has a voice and stuff. So it's like pretty cool. But basically the evils that he talks about are like the education system, the political system, and there's a couple others, but he talks about exactly what we're saying with the education system. What's great about the education system is you have kids sit in these classrooms and they just listen to this teacher read from a textbook about history that isn't actually like the account of stuff instead of being experiential. And he just goes, and it's like it's eerie because this was like almost 100 years ago. And he talks about the political system, the church, and how those are like the tools of the devil to like basically keep the masses under wraps and like keep us like ignorant to like the real world and like elevated consciousness and living.
Well, that's pre 60s LSD revolution. This is like the before there was, you never talked about Christianity or religion or the state. Oh, this is pre-Nixon era too. Yep. I mean, that's when people see, we all grew up kind of being like, oh, government shady, government this and that. That was not a thing before Nixon. He was the first person to really kind of, it was both Nixon and I think Lyndon B. Johnson who came after Nixon, right? Yeah, so it was like both of them. You had Vietnam, you had all these people who weren't considered corrupt until Nixon came along. And then, so to say that the government or the church, and this is priests molesting little kids and all this kind of shit, this was like this, the church was like, they say separation of church and state, but it was like there was still a lot of church still in the government back then. Yeah, it was crazy, man. I mean, yeah.
You were about to say something.
No, I said one nation under God. It's just interesting that you just like dissect that statement in our governmental framework, and it's just interesting to think about.
Do you ever do you ever talk about politics on this podcast? Is that ever something you guys have ever gotten into? What is your?
It's free flowing.
There we go.
I'm just curious, and I don't want to go into like too deep of it, but we live in the most unique, interesting time politically that's ever occurred. I mean, this is crazy. The fact that a person like Trump is winning and a person like Bernie, you have two of the most extreme.
Diametrically opposed people in the world,
ever. This is crazy. Yeah. And they're both crushing it in terms of doing things that everybody, well, at least the mainstream media, said no way could be done. Bernie winning Michigan, Trump winning all kinds of states, and it's like, this is a wild time. And you wonder to yourself, like, why? It was because people are realizing, like Napoleon, Hill back in the day realized way before that had the time. It's like this system is a little bit, it's a little bit interesting, a little bit messed up. I mean, you're seeing the physical revolution.
Would you say that the distractions are breaking apart? Because, like, for example, like the fact that we have social media, the fact that we're sitting here talking about this in the same room is pretty interesting because there was no ability to do that before. There was no blogs to go read about. There was 4 news channels and that's all you got. Or there was a one paper that was that was with a little paper boy like with your 5 cents and you get it, right? So
information is just instantaneous now, and you see it in the same thing with like police officers and this kind of movement that's happening where they're being held accountable and people are seeing like, well, they don't necessarily have our best interests. There's kind of a culture issue there that's not serving the people. It's enforcing to the people, But to get back to the political stuff, I've been fascinated of this of like me and my brother just recently kind of started to pay attention to it. I've really just been not interested in politics. I feel like, like kind of everybody, it's the tragedy of the commons. I can't do anything about it, so whatever. I'm just going to kind of say fuck it and not think about it.
System too, you don't believe in it. Nobody believes in the system anymore. So therefore, what does that produce? Apathy.
Yeah, and that's been my look at it. But we recently hung out at our grandparents' house, who were pastors of a charismatic church for 30 years. We could get into that another time, but they're very into politics. They watch Fox News. They leave the fucking TV on all day watching Fox News and CNN. And we were just there a few weeks ago on Super Tuesday. That whole thing started with all this delegate stuff, which truthfully I didn't even know what this was, like any of this stuff. And so, but
Electoral college, more like the Borough College.
I see what you did there. And so, but we're watching this, and I actually started to get really into it. I was like, this is fascinating, and I talk shit on Donald Trump like anybody, and I wouldn't say that I wouldn't still, but our grandparents, in particular our grandpa, was just a wise man, kind of framed it in a really unique way. He's like, the reason why people are drawn to Trump is because he's a wild card. He's paying for his own shit for the most part. I'm sure he has some sort of fundraiser, but the dude is a self-made billionaire, I think, right? I mean, billions of dollars. This guy has, and I watched a clip from 30 years ago when he was on Oprah, and he was talking. It's kind of crazy. You just got to watch it with him on Oprah, but he talks about potentially running for president, and he's not interested in it, but if he thought things got bad enough, he might try and get into that. And just watching him, and then watching his opponents and the Republican Party, who is terrified that if he wins, everything changes for them. Their cushy little lobbying, the way things have always been done, all these things, it's just like it's an unknown. Like everything changes right there. It breaks the system. And then you have on the other side of the spectrum, you have Bernie and Sanders and Hillary Clinton. And I won't even talk about Hillary Clinton, but I think if she was president, that terrifies me. But same kind of thing. Bernie Sanders, you hear this guy, and he's really radical with his thinking, and then you have those crazy people saying, he's a socialist, like, communism and all this stuff. And it's like, come on, relax a little bit. But like you said, Ryan, it's like two very radical people, and I hope that it comes down to those two. Because shit, maybe things will go awry, but I'll tell you what, I know that if Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio or Hillary Clinton win, any one of those motherfuckers, status quo. Everything stays the exact same. / gets progressively worse like it has. We'll see what happens, but I'm kind of excited.
The problem with trying to change the system from within is it's not you that changes the system. It's the system that changes you. Immortal Technique, I believe, said that. But it's the truth, man. I mean, you have, which I'm sure you guys can attest to this, the whole functional strength and movement, that for so many years, I never even heard of that, man. I read every muscle magazine. I read everything that I thought there was to know about strength and training, and it's like all of a sudden I come to find out at many years later, all the stuff I've been told is a bunch of BS to make your muscles look good. And it's like, but this is what the mainstream does.
Well, it's interesting you use the word muscle, like Muscle Magazine, right?
Yeah.
And I think you can go down that rabbit hole as why that came about. But we're at the end of the day, we're wired for movement, right, and we're not wired for muscles. Like if you think about it, the word flex, like flex your bicep. Flexion is a term that's meant to flex a joint. You can't make a bicep bigger without moving your arm. So the movement is what makes the muscle, right? So if you break that down, and back to what we were talking about earlier, with complexity of movement, humans are the most complex movers in the planet, and through that complexity is how we grew to the top of the food chain. And a cheetah runs really fast. We're not as fast as cheetahs. We are not as good at climbing as monkeys, but we can run and we can climb and we can swim and we can crawl and we can gait and we can jump and we can push and we can pull. And no other animal on the planet can do all of that. Wow. They can be very, very good at one specialist movement. A cheetah can run 60 miles an hour, right? And a monkey can jump and swing from trees.
Can I ask you, both of you guys a question? Is this why schools of thought don't work perfectly? Because the human body and the mind is so complex that having a government